Hey folks, this is Andy Crouch from All About Beer. I wanted to take a second to thank Pure Project for coming on as an underwriter. We appreciate having the support of this sustainably sourced San Diego brewery. Pure Project believes that quality ingredients and attention to detail matter, from grain to glass. You can enjoy their beer at multiple locations in San Diego and the North County. If you want to join Pure Project and the more than 25 other underwriters helping us pay our writers, podcasters, and artists, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. It's an affordable way to join the All About Beer community.
Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Holl. It's a conversation about technology this week and how it can help a brewery grow. We'll hear from both the tech and the brewing side in just a moment. But if you have story ideas or guest suggestions or just want to reach out, you can get me anytime on email at johnholl@allaboutbeer.com. That's JOHNHOLL at allaboutbeer.com. We've been talking about this on the show for a while. Andy's usually at the cold open of the shows, but we're able to bring original content to the beer industry and to curious beer drinkers through your support. We've created an affordable underwriting program that's easy on your budget and helps you get visibility. It's also an altruistic way to directly fund writers, photographers, and editors. Journalism needs your support. Please step up. Visit allaboutbeer.com/support to learn more. When you're at the website, you can read some of our recent articles, you can go through the archives, and you can tune into other podcasts like One Iconic Beer, Brew to Brew, and the All About Beer podcast. You won't be disappointed. We're also on social media at All About Beer across all of the major platforms where you can keep up with everything else we have going on. We'll get into the show in a moment, but first, here is a word from this episode's sponsors.
Here's a story brewers know all too well. You walk into the brewery straight to the tank. You pull a sample to do a forced diacetyl test and you wait for it in silence. Something feels not quite right. You reach into the water bath and bring the flask to your nose, and it's a butter bomb. The logistics start running through your head. Do we hold the tank? We have accounts waiting. How many days until it clears? And then you wake up and remember that you use Berkeley Yeast Fresh Chico. It's got ALDC inside every cell, so diacetyl never forms in the first place. Through primary, through dry hopping and hop creep, diacetyl stays ultra low. So you don't have to add ALDC or wait for diacetyl to clean up. And most importantly, you don't have to wake up in a cold sweat worrying about production nightmares like these. Fresh Chico is now available in dried bricks for as low as $88 at berkeleyyeast.com.
How are breweries making decisions based on data? Brewing is still very hands-on, and it's also artistic and creative. But there are benefits to using tech to help the process and to get insight into how to run things efficiently. To examine this question a bit more, I'm joined by Dustin Jeffers, the VP of Producer Product at NextGlass, which is the parent company of brands like Ollie and Ekos, Untappd, and Hop Culture. And I'm also joined by Teddy Gowan, the Vice President of Brewing Operations at Societe Brewing in San Diego. They joined me via Zoom. Here's our conversation. Welcome to you both. Dustin, I want to start with you and kind of going back to your earlier days in brewing and the role or lack thereof that technology was playing in the brew house. When you look back, like, what comes to mind?
Yeah, so I started around 2012, and when we started at Saltwater Brewery, we were one of the early ones on Obeer, which is another ERP system. And I had a brewery.
ERP, for those who don't know, let's.
Yeah, so ERP is what we currently have with Ekos and Ollie.
Okay.
They're systems that allow breweries to handle everything from raw material procurement to production, handles all your taxes, and then also your actual sales. And then you can do some CRM. So keeping track of like your customers, any notes, all that stuff, all in one system.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry to step on you. It's
all good.
like IPA, I know, SRM, I can, anyway, please go ahead.
So the head brewer at the time was more old school, had his own brewery for 20 years before that. And wasn't that interested in working on the tech side. So I kind of took that over from the start And I love technology. I love beer. So didn't mind doing that on top of all the other jobs that you have as a brewer, cellaring,
Yeah.
actually brewing, janitor. And I always promoted that at conferences or hanging out with other brewers. And a lot of the older brewers would say like, oh, that's going to take your job. They have all your information. It's making you less useful to the brewery. And I always kind of pushed back on it, saying, I mean, it's great if technology can take one of my jobs. I work at a brewery. I have like 20 hats that I have to wear all the time. This makes it easy. I can work on stuff at home as well because everything is digitally in the cloud. If owners have questions, I can have them log in and see it, and they're not necessarily bugging me about it. So I was very interested in technology, adding that to the brewery from early on, even though there was a lot of pushback from some of the like older brewers in the area or also like in our brewery itself.
I mean, Teddy, does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think technology just a lot of times it's trusting your inputs and outputs in the system that you're using. That's the biggest pushback that I found. You start with paper and paper works, and then you go to Google Sheets or Excel, and that's a change. So you have to sell the change as you're transitioning. And then, we've gone through iterations where we've tried other software and it doesn't work. So then the whole team loses faith in the amount of effort that we put in, and then we didn't get the output that we wanted. So you have to kind of start back to the drawing board. So I think it definitely takes time and it takes consistent effort to get the whole team to get on board with technology changes.
I mean, in the brew house, like at your place, when you're thinking about, that change from paper to Excel to, moving on to platforms, like when have you noticed like, okay, this change has to happen? Like, is it when you're in the thick of it? Is it you see it coming on the horizon? Is it, well after, you should have like what's been your experience? Because I think, there's still a lot of breweries that are out there that are, doing paper, that are doing Excel. They have systems that sort of work for them. And as somebody who's gone through all of these various iterations, like what have you learned about when it's the right time?
I think it has to do with the pace of how much you're brewing. And when you're trying to look at brews across multiple batches, that's when if you're only brewing a few batches a week, you can keep an eye on the pHs and you can see the gravity trends and you can make those adjustments each time you're brewing. But if you're brewing the same beer 4 times a week, that's just a ton of data that if you're trying to really find a trend or understand what's going on in the brewery, you have to be able to pull it out and put it into a place to look at it all together. And if you on paper, you can spend hours looking at each paper and trying to align where the pHs are going. But then you realize, hey, if we put this onto a spreadsheet, we're going to have all the information right in front of us. And I think it's sort of that same concept just continues forward is the reason for bringing on more technology in my mind, is that you get faster answers as pace increases.
Yeah, adding on to that,
Dustin. Yeah.
I feel like if you think about adding like a canning line, you want to add your canning line to your brewery before you have distribution to every grocery store chain in the state, because you're going to want to get your processes down, make sure everything's set. In my mind, like what we did at Salter was we had a system in place when we first started, way before we needed it, probably like a year early. But by doing that, I had all those processes in place, making sure we're entering information on time, kind of like what Teddy said, like garbage in, garbage out, make sure that we have all that stuff set early on before we are in the thick of it. So then when we did grow exponentially, it was a lot easier to keep track of everything because we already had all those processes in place. Like we wrote out SOPs before we needed it, because the last thing you want to do when you're growing so much or you're starting to get a lot more distro is create a new process that's going to disrupt your workflow. So get that stuff in as early as possible, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Dustin, I love that analogy. If I just to jump on top of that, we got a canning line in February of 2020 and we were all draft. And then we transitioned in a month when COVID happened to 100% can. and we didn't have those systems in place, and it was a hard learning curve for us. And taking that same idea and applying it to technology it's a good description. It's easy to see, when the canning line's exploding and you've got tons of low fills and you haven't figured out how to dial in the machine. That's the same thing that happens when you try and plug a technology in without getting all the information together, and the wheels fall off. It's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah. I mean, what was, when you look back on that, because I know, folks are still adding canning lines. There's still breweries in planning. There's still folks who are using outside companies, but maybe thinking about bringing it inside. Just to pull on that thread just a little bit more, Teddy, what were some of those nightmare scenarios, and how'd you learn from them?
Mostly it's just getting to know the machine a little bit.
Sure.
Most of our team we were all brewers, and we would keg beer and clean kegs, and then all of a sudden we were trying to figure out how to run a canning line. The biggest learning curve we had is we found someone who had run the same canning line before, and we hired them, and that made all the difference in the world. They walked in the door and they were able to crank through it. And I think some similar, if somebody knows a technology that you're trying to switch to, it's so valuable to have them come on and bring that insight, so that it gives you a lot of steps forward that, I'm not good at running the canning line. I was trying to do it for a while, and as soon as we had somebody super skilled in here, it was a totally different game from there moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, that's also, I think, just one of those technology bits as well of, you guys were talking about this, wearing all the different hats, but when there is something that can be automated, or something or someone that knows what they're doing and doing it well, you can start to kind of free up and focus on other parts of the business, and things start to hum a little bit better. You've been canning now, I guess, 6 years. I mean, there's obviously a lot of data points for that, the data points for all of the years that the brewery has been around. How often are you looking at all of the data that's coming in to sort of strategize as to where you are and where you want to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that evolves over time. It's funny, actually, you say that. When we built a huge spreadsheet for our QA/QC, and it was good, and we were getting a lot of data, but again, it was taking us a long time to process. So then we partnered with someone who knows how to use Tableau. And that was sort of like another lever we pulled that put us worlds ahead of where we were before. And we're getting answers much quicker. So a lot of times I'm just getting emails that I'm taking a look on cost of goods. I'm taking a look at efficiencies. So it's a quick look, and we can see trends, and we can dive into trends if we need to, but we're not spending hours pulling all that data together to get an answer. We're spending more time, solving the issues that we're seeing in the trends. That answers that.
Yeah. I mean, are there still things, what are you most relying on the data for? Where are you putting that focus? Not just the quick email reads, but for those deeper dives. What parts of the business are you diving deep? Yeah,
we're diving deep right now. We're looking at efficiency is huge, and then across the board, we're looking at every touch point on a brew. We're trying. The biggest issue we have is there's so many things happening in the brew, from brew to package, right? It's just an insane amount of information, and we're always trying to sort of get more data, and then sometimes we've got to carve it down to less data. We'd rather get 4 consistent data points than 20 inconsistent data points, because you can't do anything with 20 inconsistent data points. So we'll parse it back, and then the team will get excited, and we'll start to add more and more, and then it's kind of a constant audit process for what serves us. A lot of times our data is built based around issues that come up. Like right now, we're having some haze issues in our process. So we dug really deep into temperatures and biofine amounts and centrifuge. We did a deep audit into one section of the brewery, where now we've got a whole, we made our data system a little bit more robust to work through that issue. So, and now it's there. So we'll continue using it.
I mean, there's also so many variables these days. I was thinking about the recent Craft Brewers Conference and sort of walking through, and, you have the hop companies that are talking about, efficiency products these days. And, there's always, some new yeast strains that are out there that, people want to mess around with. And then even on the packaging side, where it's, moving from Pactex to cardboard or things like that. Like when you're thinking about changes like that, is there are you now thinking about, okay, data and efficiency as well? Like, yeah, we want to move to X, but what is it going to do down the line? Or is that just sort of I don't know. Am I barking up the wrong tree with that question?
No, it's a great question. Honestly, I mean, it's a crazy time to be a brewer right now. There are so many products out there, and they're all pitching different things, and they help you in different ways. And we sometimes we get a little too excited with those products, and we try them too often. A lot of times we'll look at it's a cost to flavor conversation, right? It's a efficiency to flavor conversation. So we rely on our tasting panel a lot on the back end to tell us if these adjustments helped or not. And I guess it really it's product dependent on what's being pitched. You know, if it's something that's going to increase our shelf life, it just takes a lot longer to get the data points in to see how it's going. But if it's something that's going to increase our efficiency in the brew house, we can plug it in and we can know in one day if it helped us or not. So I guess to answer that question, it sort of depends, and depending on what the product is, we'll leverage that data, and that goes back to sort of like auditing the process. You know, if we're thinking about efficiencies and we want to adjust our findings, then we're going to dig deep into the findings we're using right now when we're adding them. We're going to look at what the main data points that could be adjusted by adjusting these findings, and then go from there to make the decision. But it's definitely, because there's so much, sometimes we just had a meeting the other day. We're like, we have to chill on adjustments. We need to just we need to roll through because we're in busy season right now. We just need to brew right now. So,
yeah, Dustin, I heard you laugh a couple of times during this in a conspiratorial way or sympathetic way.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the big things that being able to have your systems in place and start tracking stuff is important, because if you are changing your findings and also now it's like the material that you're dry hopping with, you don't know which one is actually helping you. So being able to look at all your past records is huge. More and more with all this new stuff that's coming out with raw materials, like you do have to look at it like a scientific experiment. Like you can't change too many variables and then actually know what your outcome is. So tracking is getting more and more important with breweries because there's just more and more stuff to track, which wasn't the case 10 years ago. There wasn't as much new things out there. Like there's like 10 different ways you can dry hop something now. It's not just T90 versus T45 back in the day.
I'd say there's hundreds of ways you can dry hop at this point. Yeah. It's crazy.
So how do the technology makers keep up with this?
Yeah, so it is ever changing. I think one thing that's important is we've gotten the accounting side down pretty well. So that appeases the accountants, right? Like they can go in, they can see costs of batches. One of my goals coming from the brewery world and now being able to influence actual like features in the tech is take what like the brewers care about. So a lot of the stuff that Teddy was talking about, like being able to see your efficiencies and care more about what actually happened in the brew day and tracking that, is one of my goals. So then they can figure out like what dry hop method was the best, what finding method was the best. Did they do anything different in the mash to get better efficiency out of it? So I think it helps to have like our team, which is a bunch of ex-brewers, try to add stuff that makes the brewers happy and not necessarily just like sales and accounting happy. Like it's important that these systems, they're connected to your QuickBooks. Like the accounting should be correct. But to something that's talked about earlier, like garbage in, garbage out, we want to make something that's nicer for the brewers to use. So then they actually want to input information, and then the information coming out is better. It's easy to kind of cheat with spreadsheets. Like you can easily go back and edit something on a spreadsheet. Where if you do have these systems in places that are important to pull data from, it kind of keeps you on top of things, it's very hard to go back and fill in all that information from the past week. So like making it easier to do stuff on the day when it actually happened. And that way, when owners or ops has to go look at information, it's more accurate and up to date. So that's kind of like the goal of where I want technology in the brewery to be, make it better for the brewers. So then they're capturing better information down the line.
Yeah. I mean, Teddy, how important is it for you? I mean, this is sort of a rhetorical question because it's going to be important, but is being able to give feedback on what your needs are when they change in real time and then actually see results?
Yeah, I mean, it's essential. What that one thing we've struggled with is that, the connection of processing the data and then providing the data to the team to have them be a part of the conversation on the adjustment. And we've worked really hard. There's been times when we've rolled out data and people are like, are we, because this isn't good, are we getting fired? It was like, no, we're just trying to show you so we can work together to find a solution. And we've hammered that idea home for a while, and I think we're starting to get a lot of ownership on the floor as we're looking through these. Like, this is what we're going to focus on, and we're going to keep an eye on this. We're going to talk about it every week, and as it deviates, we're going to talk together about what's going on in the system and what could be done. And I think it gives ownership on the floor for them to give feedback on what's happening in real time. To that point that Dustin's making, I think a lot of times you look at, if data's not input quick enough, you're looking at stuff, it's lagging indicators. You're looking at a month data from a month ago that you're trying to figure out what you can't. A month ago in brewery terms is you have no idea what happened in those weeks when you're trying to flush out issues.
Yeah.
I think that's huge what you just mentioned. Like, I'm going to show you this data. You're not necessarily like in trouble because of it. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather have that info early on and then we can fix it, or like we can get better feedback from our employees on like why something is not the numbers we think it is. Like maybe there's something mechanical wise that like we should probably fix. We have the numbers now to back it up, and we can bring that to ownership and be like, hey, we should upgrade this piece of equipment or buy this thing, and look how much money it's going to save us. I talk about that a lot with brewers when it comes to like yeast management. Like, yeah, it's some work, but when you have to dump yeast down the drain because you don't have enough yeast springs, like give that to management and tell them like, hey, we just had to dump theoretically $600 of yeast that we could have pitched into other batches. Like, buy us this keg that we can store yeast in, and it's going to pay for itself on one dump. So like,
Yeah.
for the employees, like use these numbers that are maybe not necessarily always consistent or off, and use that to your advantage to get what you need and have ownership buy you better equipment.
Yeah, we had a whole talk with the team yesterday about we're trying to make the machines work harder, not the people. And if we can get more out of the machines, then the people, we're doing the same amount of work. It all works together in itself. And that's a great point about, brings an ROI to a machine, a return on investment to a machine, and it gets the team involved to see, look, this is what we're looking for. If we can solve X or Y, then we can justify this machine. So we can go ahead and do that. So
yeah, it turns the packaging team to be like, oh, this kegger's a pain, to being like, hey, the kegger's off. This is how much loss that's happening. We should upgrade this. And
yeah, this is how much loss. This is how long it's taking us. Look at how much faster we could be doing this if we did X, Y, or Z. I mean, exactly. I think it makes a ton of sense.
Dustin, I wanted to ask you though, every now and again on message boards, there's like feedback of, folks asking about different platforms and things like that. And there's always the answer of, well, I wish it did ... or, like this doesn't work for us because ... And I know you all are reading those, and I know, you all are wanting to have that great customer experience, or at least I hope you are. How much does that feedback get to the engineers, the people who need to see it in order to implement the changes if they're sound, and how much of that is either pie in the sky or just not feasible.
So hopefully none of it is pie in the sky now with where technology is and
Okay.
like agentic coding. I think it's definitely changed in the past 6 months. Like things that I had as reach goals are not necessarily reach goals anymore. Like it's stuff that would have taken an engineer a year to build. Maybe it's now 3 months to build it.
That's
Um,
wild. Yeah.
it is insane. It's changing like weekly now. I mean, yesterday, Claude just released Fable, which is like their craziest model yet. So I started messing around with it this morning. When it comes to like the feedback and where we hear it, message boards are a great place to put it because we do read it. Um, Much like brewers used to read like Untappd, right? Like they do read it. But the best way to give the feedback is just like messaging us directly. Because every piece of feedback that comes in, like I store and I have a large file that works kind of like a Reddit board where stuff gets upvoted. So whatever gets asked about the most, I'm now trying to pull and make that thing next. Um, so I love jumping on calls with people because there's also some things that people are requesting that maybe there's just a better process to do what they're trying to do. And since we do have so many like ex-brewers on staff, like we also have helped some people and be like, oh, like try this out. Yes, your current workflow may have been better when you're on spreadsheets or any of that, but like we have this built into the system. It's a lot easier. Just do it this way now. So working with people, trying to find solutions, but then also that's my main job at the company is taking feedback from the customers and then give it to the dev team and figure out what we can build, how quickly we can build it, and should we do even more than their requests? Like their request is telling us a certain problem, but is that the actual underlying problem, or can we fix something even further down the line?
Yeah. I mean, it strikes me as important as having that brewer knowledge on staff. I mean, AI is revolutionizing things in at breakneck speed, but still having that practical knowledge on staff of people who understand how the physical equipment works and even the artistic ability works.
Yeah,
That
there's
strikes
plenty
me
of
as important.
times.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's plenty of times that I like will talk to Claude and I'll be like, "Oh, you could do this." I'm like, "Yes, that will work," but I would never want to do that at the brewery. Like, I'm not
right.
gonna. My employees will never do that. We have to think of a different solution.
Um, Teddy, have you all been utilizing AI in the brew house in any way?
Not a ton. We use it for, SOP development and some job description stuff. We've started to pull it with the data through Tableau. There's some AI stuff you can use, but we haven't really. A lot of times we're still getting our data to be, the foundation of the data. A lot of times we'll put it in. It's like this looks close, but there's a couple tweaks we need to make back there to get it to give us the answer we're truly looking for. So, short answer, not a ton. We're pretty. We got a lot of valves in the brewery, so we're still just kind of pulling data right now.
I like that. Um, Dustin, as you think about the evolution of technology in the beer space, what are you looking forward to? What are you excited about? I mean, I know we just touched on AI, but are there other aspects or, things that we didn't talk about yet that you're kind of excited about?
Yeah, I mean, going more on AI is making operations life easier. So right now, I have some videos and did a talk at CBC about using AI for dissecting your data. So pulling certain reports out of Ekos or out of Ollie, throw them in, and then being able to pull your like POS information into that and have it break down all that info and give you actual like usable, actionable data. So going on like message boards, there's always the people that are like, oh, like I don't want to use AI because I don't need some robot to think for me. And my main argument back is like it's not thinking for you, it's doing all the like legwork for you. and giving you the data that you can actually act on. So, yes, if you are asking questions to AI on your data and be like, tell me what to do, that's not necessarily the best use case for it because it doesn't know what your brewery structure is. Are you mostly a tasting room brewery? Are you distro in state? Or are you more worried about like exporting and hype? Like AI is not going to know that and also doesn't have the industry knowledge to necessarily tell you the correct answer. But if you throw all that info in there and then say like, hey, tell me what's my most profitable beer in the tasting room versus distro, like it's going to give you all that information and then you can act on it. Um, so yeah, I think using AI for more than like label like creation and descriptions, I think that's going to be one of the main goals. And like unlocks for breweries, especially on the operations level. I know some people are like, "Oh, are you gonna have AI like create a recipe for me?" Like, no, like that's not my main goal in the next year. I think there's still some and a lot of art to that. Like, if you need us to create recipes for you, that's not really the goal of it. It's more making business decisions and helping you out with really complex data that like brewers aren't trained on or schooled on, like helping you run the business, not create the art.
I like
Yeah,
that. Yeah, please say.
I'll say, yeah, my chat GPT is getting to know me pretty well because I ask it a lot of questions and it spits back things to that point, Dustin, about it sort of knows that we're a production brewery. It's kind of scary sometimes when it responds. I'm like, whoa, it knows, it learned from the other things I talked about. And I'll say we've also used it for things like sizing heat exchangers. Doing that math for me is pretty difficult. And
Oh yeah.
so I plugged it in and it's like, is this heat exchanger big enough? And it gets me close enough in the ballpark that I can make a quick decision on something and without sort of just fully guessing.
Oh yeah. I wish I had this when building a brewery and trying to figure out like your glycol chiller size and having to do all
Yeah,
that
exactly.
math.
Yeah,
Like this would have been
it's
great.
really slick for that. It's for speeding up things like that along the way. And there's some other pretty awesome resources that are taking some large brewer data that you can just ask, you can ping it right on the site and it gives you, it's crazy. The forums that are using AI, it's pretty wild. You're getting a lot faster information, a lot more dialed in than just like parsing through forums. It's pulling out all that data, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's I've seen some of that as well.
It's
Um,
funny actually. I
yeah.
showed our brewers that, and I was like, "Oh, this might." They all got really excited. They're using it a ton now, so we're getting. That's where we had to kind of slow down our adjustments because they were asking it tons of questions about all the things we're doing. So
Yeah, I mean, I showed it off one during CBC just using Claude and Chrome. Go read an article on Abstract, go look at the Abstract website, and also go look at the like Lupamax information, do all the calculations, and let me know if I want to take half of my dry hop of like Citra Lupamax and turn it into Abstract. How much should I
that's
use?
awesome.
And that would have been like four equations I'd have to do, and Claude did it in a minute.
Yeah, it's a crazy
Yikes.
world out there.
Yes, yeah. As a journalist, yikes. Um, Teddy, as you know, you start to look forward a little bit more. Are there different ways that you want to start thinking about technology in the brew house?
I think a lot of it is just we're working so hard on we have so many data points and now how can we put them together and then provide them back to the team to make actionable changes. That's our that the final loop of the data cycle is where we've been stuck there forever. It's easy to pull 1,000 data points, but then to process it and give it back to the team and make real-time actionable changes that affect the business, that's our biggest goal for technology moving forward. And whether we can leverage AI for that or just having a strong data platform that we can pull from, that's where we get the biggest. That's what I'm excited about for technology. It took us a long time, but we got dialed in that now I can get cost of goods on every beer every time it comes through, and I can see on a graph which way we're trending, and we can make immediate adjustments if there's, if accounting books something incorrectly, or if we book something incorrectly, or if something happened and we got overcharged or anything along the way, just being able to be super confident in the product that we're putting out from a cost perspective and a quality perspective, that for me is the more we can leverage technology to get those answers quickly without having to, we call it tweezering, without having to tweezer out the data for hours to get the answer that you're looking for. You can spend more time processing. And for me, that's the future of technology in the brewery. Obviously, we'd love to get a fully automated brew house, but I think we're still a little ways away from that.
So, Dustin, what's the challenge that you put to brewers as they start to think about the evolution of technology and their business?
Yeah, I would say the main one is putting better information in to, hopefully you're using Ekos or Ollie for my sake, but whatever you're using to collect information, make sure it's as up to date as possible. And then taking the output of that info and start messing around with these like AI models and really use it to make better business decisions. I think we've all realized, it's been talked about since COVID, that like making great beer is now the floor. Like you have to do more than that. You have to run a good business. And it's sad when there's really, really great breweries that are going out of business because they didn't actually run a business. They made great beer and that was it. So information's important. It's more than just a hobby. Like you're running a business, you have employees. So like collect this data as best as you can and then actually act upon it. You can't also just be collecting data. You actually have to make good business decisions off of it.
I like that. If folks want to contact you directly, how do they do that, Dustin?
Yeah, my email is dustin.jeffers@nextglass.co, or go to Ekos or Ollie, and message us, and we would be happy to talk. If you're a current user, reach out to support, tell them you want to set up a meeting, and it's one of my favorite things to do now in this new position is just talk to people about like issues they're having and how we can help them out with it.
And Teddy, if folks find themselves in Southern California and want to sit in your tap room and drink your beer and see how the data is working in the glass, how do they find Society?
Yeah, we're at Societe Brewing. We're in San Diego. We're in Claremont Mesa Boulevard. Would love to see anybody come by. My email, I'm just teddy@societybrewing.com. And yeah, if anytime brewers come by, we love chatting. That's another piece. I feel like we always get something out of a conversation with other brewers. To that point Dustin made earlier about, there's probably a different way to do it. We're all kind of doing the same thing and everybody's coming at it from a slightly different angle and slightly different perspective. And talking through those perspectives is really valuable. And you find ways to streamline things that way.
Absolutely. Guys, thanks so much for taking the time today. I appreciate the insight, appreciate the conversation, and your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Dustin.
Fun plans for the 4th? Where are you hanging out? What are you going to be drinking? What breweries are you going to be hanging out at? Tell me about it. Drop me a line on email at johnholl@allaboutbeer.com. That's JOHNHOLL @allaboutbeer.com. Make sure you join the This Week in Raukbier group on Facebook, or you can follow @TW on Instagram. Upload your photos and join the conversation. You can support us by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support, and I really hope you will. When you're at the website, check out new content, check out the archives, and find the links to follow us on social media. We're usually at All About Beer across the platforms. Before we run, here is a note from this episode's sponsor. We thank them for their support. We hope you'll give them your business.
Tim Shasha from Berkeley Yeast here. When I was the director of brewing at Cellarmaker, there was a time when I was really wrestling with hop creep and diacetyl. I'd be dumping liters of ALDC into the tank, at knockout, at dry hop, before cooling, just hoping that it would work. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. That's when I reached out to my friends over at Berkeley Yeast. I was like, why don't you just put the ALDC in the yeast? And the next thing I knew, Fresh Chico was born. Just like that, all my hop creep woes were gone, which was really cool. But an even bigger thing I noticed is that when I switched, all my beers were popping more. And that's when I figured out that diacetyl doesn't just mean butter. It was also dulling the brightness and intensity of my hops, masking those flavors even when D was below threshold. For me, Fresh Chico was a life changer. And now that you can get it dry, it's easy to use and competitively priced. It's the full package. Find out more at berkeleyyeast.com.
If you like smart audio content, a reminder that All About Beer has a separate podcast channel. Search and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Listen to shows like Brewer to Brewer, the All About Beer podcast, and One Iconic Beer. Steal This Beer still has new episodes every Monday. The BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. And as for this show, Mitch Weber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo, and I'm John Holl. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'll be back again to drink beer and to think beer.